The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori?
And since I was working in the press corps when Sam Donaldson is there, that's a very grudging compliment on my part. And Jen Psaki, I think, is one of the best press secretaries ever.
Nor have you ever been pregnant, but for women out there who have faced those choices, this is an incredibly difficult thing. The president believes their rights should be respected. Go ahead. I think we got to move on. I think we have to move on. You've had plenty of time today. Go ahead. You are 17 times more likely to go to the hospital if you're not vaccinated, 20 times more likely to die.
So did minority calls, over 100,000 children are serious.
What's your favorite place in the White House and why? There is a set of stairs that is right outside the entrance to the West Wing. And when you walk up those stairs in the morning, you see not only the White House, but you also see the front door to the West Wing. It's just a reminder to me every morning of how fortunate I am. The number of containers sitting on the docks at the ports of LA and Long Beach for over 8 days have fallen by nearly 50%. The average amount of time containers sit on docks has fallen by a week.
But we know that just between March and August, which is a very small sample size, DHS says more than 47,000 of these migrants that were given notices to report did not show up. So why let them?
It's like all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states and it's going after parents who are in loving relationships, who have kids. And this is an issue that makes me completely crazy.
How can you guys say this is not a political issue when the president's statement about this talked about getting pro-choice officials elected?
Did I say it's not a political issue?
Yes, you actually said some call it a political issue. It is not. Abort everything.
There is a process and an investigation that's gone to the Department of Homeland Security. I don't have any update on that.
The president said that they were whipping people, which would be a criminal offense, and they've been told they're not going to be criminally charged.
And there was an investigation into that, and I'll let the Department of Homeland Security announce any conclusion of that investigation.
You accuse these officers of brutal and inappropriate measures. Now that they've been told they will not be criminally charged, will you apologize?
I think I just addressed it, Peter.
Okay. Why did the president break his...
That was so good. So good. So good. So good. That was the first video I found right after I came out of Shabbos. I was like, oh, that's what we're opening with on Sunday. That's what we're opening up with Sunday as we say good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discretion. I'm yours, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Hope your weekend was as phenomenal as mine was. I spent my weekend flying down to Florida, flying back up, spending Shabbos with my wife and two of my daughters. And, in the Palm Beach region. Had a great time. A little tired. It was a little tiring, not going to kid you. It's like I didn't sleep at all Thursday night. And went straight into doing laid-back law on Friday, laying in bed while I was doing it. And, basically trying to catch sleep wherever I can. So, and tomorrow, I'm starting a very, very, very busy week. I'm going to be doing a lot of streaming this week. I expect to be streaming the Crumbley trial. I got a 24-hour stream on Wednesday. I'm going to be in your face like all freaking week. So, there's going to be a lot of Joe this week. A lot of Joe. And it starts right here and now. And I'll tell you that I'm going to start with social media, which has been making me like a little bit annoyed. And people say I bring this on myself, and it's possible I do unwittingly, or I guess since I know the problem, wittingly, that I feel like maybe I'm being trolled, that it's like in my feed, there's just like this constant DeSimping, especially since, if you're unaware, on Friday, Judge Lewis issued a ludicrous decision against Donald Trump of punitive damages of $83.3 million, because that's the exact right number. 83.3. 83 would be too little. 84 would be too much. 83.3 is the exact appropriate amount of damages. It's just astonishing. It's astonishing. It's astonishing that this man here And look, I don't know what happened in that dressing room 30 years ago. Frankly, I don't think E. Jean Carroll knows what happened in that dressing room 30 years ago. She's given so many different variations, doesn't know what month, what time of year it was, doesn't know anything about it. But apparently it very, very definitely happened and was definitely not rape, but she's definitely allowed to say rape. And then if he says it's not rape, somehow that's defamatory by him, which is just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And when she levies these false claims about him, just completely outright false claims of saying that he engaged in that conduct, which I can't believe I'm so out of YouTube mode that I use that word in the first 5 minutes of a stream. But that she has carte blanche to say that, God knows why. And if he says he didn't, that's defamatory. Punitive damages, defamatory. When he's like, no, I am not tolerating this. But somehow we're allowed to change the English language into like, because people associate that with X with being Y, she can say Y. And if he denies Y, then he's defaming her. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. This is such persecutive injustice. It's astonishing. Those of you who have concerns that this will have an impact on his ability to campaign, I heard people talking about how the between this judgment and the other judgments that's anticipated to come down in New York from Judge Engoron with the whole purported financial fraud that no one was defrauded, but yet somehow there's fraud case where they're expecting hundreds of millions of dollars worth of judgment, that's going to somehow impact his campaign. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't foresee how that would likely transpire, because when people donate to Trump's campaign, they don't donate to him individually, and these judgments are against him individually. So he might not be considered personally liquid, but I'll tell you, as someone who's engaged in judgment execution for a fair amount of time in the state of New York, that yeah, there's a big difference between the Trump campaign and Donald Trump. And if you have a judgment against him, well, yeah, then he personally might struggle to maintain much in the way of many assets in his name, although finding it, and then you're going to have to enter those judgments into these different jurisdictions where he lives, so they'd have to have it entered in Florida, and there's all sorts of protections for individuals in Florida. I don't think that she's going to see any of this money. I mean, anything significant. Not anything significant. I'd be surprised if she manages to get 7 figures out of him, all told, over the balance of her life. I'd be very impressed with her judgment execution attorneys if they manage to get 7 figures out of her. Is it possible? Yeah, of course it's possible. He could be sloppy. I'd be very surprised. Now, if they manage somehow to get these judgments that are entered against him personally to also be transferred over to his campaign finances, then all bets are off. Then that changes everything. That's a difficult thing to accomplish under the law, but we've seen that when it comes to Donald Trump, whatever the law is certainly seems to be very flexible in the eyes of the courts. Very, very flexible law. Law that most people think of as being intransigent, all of a sudden just gets very bendy. Gets very bendy around when it comes to how we can go after Donald Trump, because that's democracy, that's justice, that's a better America, not at all a banana republic. No, why would someone think such a thing? Why would anyone think such a thing? Anyway, so yeah, I don't see it likely that they'll be able to use. I assume. Look, I'm not his accountant, so I can't tell you for certain. But based on the way we've seen in the Engoron case in New York, that he's sufficiently shrewd, which you would imagine that someone who's been a real estate magnate for the last, 5 decades and done fairly well with it, that he's sufficiently educated and disciplined to keep his assets in different corporations, that his Trump corporation proceeds are very different from his own personal proceeds. So I don't expect this to have any impact on his campaign. I'd be very surprised if this has any impact on his campaign. And those people who are sitting there relishing, saying, "Ooh, he's broke. Oh, he'll never be able to campaign," are just stupid. That's my take on it. Or I shouldn't say stupid. They're gullible. They're gullible. and legally naive. Perhaps certifiably so. Anyhow. So that's what I wanted to share with. But in the wake of that, and I said I sort of brought this on myself, perhaps by engaging, I have just been inundated, especially since the Carroll decision came down. My timeline on Twitter is just rando after rando, mid-size account. And when I say mid-size account, so I consider my account on Twitter to be considered mid-size. And I know that to most of you, it's considered fairly large. I get that. But we all tend to look up at the level above us, which is why perhaps I consider myself mid-size. I have 42,000 followers on X or Twitter. So I consider that mid-size. Not large, certainly not super large, but mid-size. So, and I have been seeing, and I consider anyone, let's say between 10 and 150,000 to be like mid-size. Mid-size, as you're getting close to 150, that's getting pretty large. So I have been inundated with account after account of DeSimps. And I keep calling them DeSimps, and someone called me out and saying they're calling them DeSimps is like those childish people who say maggot. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to condense everything into 140 characters here. Because I could go over, but I don't like when it goes over because then people have to press more to see the rest of the message and it doesn't get as much engagement. So I always try to keep it down to 140 characters. And yeah, you save 12 characters. I did the math. When you write DeSimp, it's DeSimps instead of writing DeSantis supporters. It's just much shorter. So you can't really compare that to the whole childish. And I do agree that it's childish when people say Republican with triple Ks instead of the C or whatever. But I think that is childish. But I don't think DeSimp. I never even thought of DeSimp as being something that was so offensive. But I was like, okay, these people are they're busy crying. They spent a lot of time crying over the last 2 weeks. So I guess now being called DeSimp is something that is very triggering, very, very triggering. But they've been going nuts. I mean, nuts. I mean, woo! Ever since this E. Jean Carroll thing, that like, aha, you see, this is why we should have had DeSantis, with just ridiculous assertions. I had one person complaining, and I've been engaging, and this is why it's my fault. I said it's my fault. I didn't really specify why. It's that apparently by engaging with these criers, I have now trained the algorithm that this is what I want. And it's just like, to me, that's all X is now. I go through my timeline and all I see is just one DeSantis crier after another talking about how terrible Trump is and how he's ruining the Republican Party and I'm a never Trumper and a never Trumper and this and that. And apparently I now am I am ground zero. My entire social media is an amalgam of various mid-sized X accounts who are just so Trump deranged that it's astonishing. And their migrant followers below them who have smaller accounts. Every once in a while we'll say something that'll catch my eye as well. I had one person saying that, they're complaining about the way he handled COVID. He didn't build the wall. It's just like everything, like as if like, so I don't understand it. So what, you want Biden instead? That's what you want. You want Biden instead. It's exactly the same thing. Having Trump in there, exactly the same thing as Biden. I had one person invoking God in Corinthians and saying that, like, no, I can no longer. I supported him twice, but I can't go to the well again and support him a third time. He's too much of an affront to humanity or whatever it is. I'm getting Corinthians thrown at me. I don't know much about Corinthians. I'm not going to kid you. I'm just some Jewish kid from New York. I can't refute Corinthians. How am I supposed to fight against Corinthians? I don't even know what Corinthians is. Is that a person? Is someone? And I'm not saying this disrespectfully at all. I'm just saying when someone's throwing Corinthians at me, I feel very out of my element. I'm like, look, if you think God told you not to vote for Jesus, sorry, that was totally wrong. Whoop. If you think God told you not to vote for Trump, I say don't vote for Trump. Okay? I'll give you a pass. If you feel very confident that God directed you not to vote for Trump, no matter what, that's what God said. God basically used his vessels and his writings to teach you not to vote for Trump. I'm going to basically say you shouldn't vote for Trump. If that's how you interpret, what you consider to be the Gospels, I'm not. Like I said, I'm just some Jewish kid from New York. I can't tell you anything. I'm not going to even try to argue that. I'm like, all right, you got Corinthians there. Someone tell me what Corinthians, it made leather for Chrysler. What is, someone tell me. Now Kimmy's saying to me first or second, like I knew there was 2 Corinthians. I don't know what a Corinthian is. Is that a kingdom? I'm not saying this disrespectfully. I'm serious. I feel like I felt so out of my element. That was Jesus. I can't believe I phrased it that way. I was like, oh my god. I basically just called Trump Jesus. That was not at all my intention. Yeah, no, so that's basically, okay, so fine. So I guess I'm not talking to you DeSimpians who believe that Jesus told you not to vote for Trump, because you're working on levels that I don't even strive to reach. I don't even strive for that. That's like, I'm not even thinking about. I was like, okay, look, if that's where you're coming from, you got Corinthians, you got Romans, you got, I don't know. You have, the Book of Lamentations, you think told you don't vote for Trump. All right. Look, I can't, I'm not going to sit here trying to debate theology with you over it. So I guess you're one person who's just not going to vote for Trump. There are 1 and 2 books that try to. I'm not. I felt so sorry. I felt so confused when I was being quoted Corinthians. Yay, the Crumbley trial needs you. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Crumbley trial tomorrow. I'm going to be doing the Crumbley trial. I'm going to start reviewing it tonight. Give you a little catch up as to where it's at and various legal issues that are. But tomorrow morning, I am going to be streaming the Crumbley trial. That is the plan. I'm going to be just jumping in. Joe, it's not a banana republic. It's our banana democracy. Don't get it twisted. So we're digging tunnels to hide Trump's money. Okay, that's not a bad idea. Damn, those random subscription poor on X. I got to tell you, by the way, I'm not going to kid you. I have noticed that, like, if I get a follow, I'm more likely to look at who that follow is if there's a check mark there. Only because I figure that, like, because I'm like, I don't know, maybe this is someone I'm supposed to know, if it offends, rinse and repeat. World peace and Timmy's dog are higher on God's. Maybe that's your opinion. Like I said, I'm not going to argue theology when it comes to politics. Someone has theological reasons that they say they can't vote for Trump. I'm not going to argue with that. I had one person who was basically saying that, you want to know Trump's worst thing that he did? That he gave emergency powers to the governor. This is the level of argument. I'm like, dude, that's the 10th Amendment. You didn't give them emergency. Where do you come up with this stuff? This is the worst thing. It's like, look, I could have excused everything that Trump did. I didn't care about anything that happened with Fauci and all that other stuff, but just, you know what? You were totally flat out wrong for giving emergency powers to the governors. I was just like, I have no words. I don't understand. It's like, understand, you consider yourself a conservative and you understand that little about the way our Constitution works, and that they had those emergency powers many hundreds of years before Trump was born. But I don't know. But apparently he gave them emergency powers. This is what I'm saying with the derangement syndrome just goes whoop right out the window. Here's this. I was almost showing you the wrong thing. I was going to show you a joke I saw, but I'm going to save that for later. Don't kid yourself. They'd come after DeSantis the same way they're coming after Trump. Nah, DeSantis hasn't lived a life of lying, defrauding, godless, immoral, degenerate filth. He'd be just fine. This guy here. So when I say mid-size, what is he? $21,000. Like. Are you so naive? Do you in 2015? Nobody said any of these terrible things about Trump. Nobody. But it's like, no, Trump is the one who lived that way. It's like you don't even realize when your mind has been twisted by the inundated soup of an environment that we're in, which is that the media says anything Trump does is evil and corrupt. And you don't realize how that's just through osmosis, just seeped into your brain, where you actually start swallowing so much of their garbage. And you just completely oblivious to it that you think that something different would have happened if DeSantis had become president in 2016, which never, ever would have happened because there's no way he would have created sufficient support to overcome Hillary. Never in a million years. But you think that Trump is unique. It's like because DeSantis hasn't lived a life of lying, defrauding, godless, immoral, degenerate filth. We would be knowing so much about his degeneracy right now if he had been if he was elected in 2016. They go through Trump with a fine-tooth comb. Does Trump make it easier for them? Yes. Am I saying that DeSantis cheats on his wife or is as likely to have cheated on his wife as Trump? No, I think it's far more likely. It's far more likely that Trump has engaged in extramarital engagements than Ron DeSantis. Gun to my head, if you asked me, who's more likely to have cheated on their wife, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis? I'd say Donald Trump every single time. That's not what they're going after him for. That's not what they're going after him for. And that's what you're missing. So stupid. So stupid. They would find something to go after. Who are these other people? Seaglass here. I think I've had an epiphany. I believe Ron, this is just astonishing. Like this is the level of delusion. This was written just, mind you, January 27th. This is 2 days ago. This is 2 days ago. This is the epiphany from Seaglass 15. I don't know if she's a big count or not. What is she? She only got 3,800 subs. I think I've had an epiphany, but this was shared a lot. I believe Ron is running a shadow campaign. His social media presence has amplified exponentially. He appears confident and relaxed and fully in the driver's seat. I kept asking myself why the abrupt exit from the primary before New Hampshire, and now it's starting to make sense. It's all coming clear to Seaglass here. He knew how dysfunctional the party is being handled and how disillusioned the base is. He's stepping back and reorganizing. That's why he emphasized suspending, not ending. No, everyone who ends their campaign says suspended. Every single one. Everyone. That's just the terminology they use. Remember how he pivoted with COVID when he realized what was happening? He's not finished, y'all. Save your hashtags. You're going to need them. Still with DeSantis. Like, it's... I don't even understand it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. John Burke is going out there and he's screaming about everyone. They've basically gone crazy, and I think I have, by engaging with them, almost welcomed them into my timeline. I wish I could just show you just how much lunacy I see specifically from the DeSantis fan club, which I didn't even know there was so many DeSantis supporters until he was out of the race. Like, all of a sudden I was like, wow, a whole bunch of you. Who knew? Who knew? I didn't know. I didn't know. But speaking of being blissfully unaware, this is great. This is great. I can't show you the video. I don't think I could show you the video. But Nicki Minaj, if you're unaware, if you're unaware, so Ben Shapiro appeared on a rap video together with Tom McDonald. Tom McDonald, who basically is the most based rapper in the history of America, and has had countless #1 songs, just countless. So they put out a rap together. I'm sure you heard about this. I'm sure you heard about Ben Shapiro rapping. Let me pull up a little section of it. Should we watch just Ben's part of the rap? Maybe we'll do that. I can't show you all of it because this will definitely just get knocked out of the box. But here's Ben, a Jewish kid, rapping with one of the best rappers on the planet. This is him.
Keep it real facts. Don't care how you feel, man. If you want my pronouns, I'm the man. I'm the man who don't respect.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a whack. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're
Dog, it's a yarmulke. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I gotta hear that again.
Don't be a whack. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You going to prison. I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest, y'all.
I think this is hilarious.
My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes. I just did this for fun.
Nikki, take some notes. Talking to Nicki Minaj.
All my people, download this. Let's get a billboard #1.
This ain't rap. This ain't money, cars and clothes. We ain't selling drugs. We ain't.
Anyway, so that's Facts by Tom McDonald featuring Ben Shapiro. I highly recommend you check it out. Highly recommend you check it out. I'm not gonna. Yeah, that was better than 2 Live Jew. That's great. 2 Live Jew. Oh my god. Well, anyway, so Nikki responded to this by saying Ben Shapiro put out a diss record. He said his comment sections are filled with woke Karens. This song is #1 on US iTunes. What's really happening? And who's that other man rapping? Who's that other man rapping? Is this real life? He said, Nikki, take some notes. Nah. Like, this is Nicki Minaj. And this, look at this. Ain't that man literally a white supremacist? Dudes, they're so bad. You should endorse It's Ryan 48. Like, yeah, the timeline is amazing. People saying you're so embarrassing. Oh, come on. I saw someone who was like, dude, he's got this guy, the guy you don't know has more #1s than you do. Literally has more #1s than you. And you're like, who is that guy? Who's that white guy rapping? I don't even know who that is. Unbelievable. I'm going to tell you that I don't think Ben has the chops to make a career in rap. That was not. I've seen rap. I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of rap. Not going to kid you. Not a big fan. You know, back in the day, I was a big fan of 50 Cent. 50 Cent was great. But yeah, I don't think that Ben is going to make it. Oh, Matt, you the man. Slim Shapiro. Dr. Dreidel. Oh my God. You guys are killing me. You're killing me. Dr. Dreidel. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm having so much fun. But yeah, I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you so much, brother. Let me catch up on a couple of these. Matt said, love your passion. Keep on keeping on. You the man. Reformed convict, tad bit of Jesus in you and the Holy Ghost, you'll be convert running up and down the aisles in a church. Holler, still no help stepping on water. I'm pretty committed to the whole Jew thing. Not gonna kid you. I'm telling you right now. I'm gonna die a Jew. That's the way it's gonna be. J-Rock 134 checking in. All hail. Remember the following. J-Rock. God bless you, brother. God bless you. He's talking about Nikki Haley, not that other chick. Maybe it works for both of them. It really works for both of them. That's the beauty. You want to make a bad joke about me liking 50 Cent? I'm gonna tell you, the only reason I said that was just because I thought it was funny to be like the white Jew pronouncing 50 Cent as 50 cents. That's really the only reason I said it. I couldn't name a single song that guy ever wrote. So anyway, there you go. Whew. Yeah. So I definitely recommend you check out his rap Facts. And that was another thing I saw coming out of Shabbos. I was like, that was great. But if you're a DeSantis supporter, I'm gonna say this, okay? I'm gonna close this segment up with this thought for you. If you're a DeSantis supporter, grow a pair. Get over it. We've all had to support people we didn't like. I get it. I know you think that a lot of people who support Trump have some sort of idolized or idealized vision of him. It's not the case. We recognize that he's flawed. Most of us recognize that he's very flawed, but he happens to be pretty good at getting a lot of stuff done. Is he going to get everything done? No. Is he going to exaggerate? Definitely. He will. Is he going to make promises that likely he'll be incapable of keeping? Certainly. But his efforts to get conservative type of work done are 80% of the way to what you want. 80% of the way. And I know you think that DeSantis would have gotten you 95 or 100% of what you wanted, but that's not reality either. And this is where we're at right now. Your boy, never, ever, ever had any chance of winning this primary. So accept it that we're in the age now where we either embrace the fact that we need to get behind Donald Trump and support him and move forward to get rid of these woke leftists and this Biden administration with their failed foreign policy, with their crazy lack of a southern border that we're about to cover next, with their crappy economy, and with all the failures of promoting DEI, CRT, and all these terrible things, which are literally an attack on your children and on you and everything about America's way of operating, not to mention eradicating and teaching the left that their attempts to persecute their political opponents are not tolerable. And if you fail to jump into the fray, if only for that reason alone, you're complicit. That's just the reality. You're basically saying, I'm going to step out of this because I just can't support that man. He's too much of an affront to me, or God told me not to. You're basically closing your eyes. You're closing your eyes to the problem. And your motivation is not actually nobility, but if you look inside yourself, you'll recognize you're feeling a little bit petty about the fact that you just don't like this guy, and a lot of people do. And I get it. That happens sometimes. We've all had to support people we don't like. But get over it. Get over the pipe dream. It's getting a little tiring. And I'll see you in November. We'll all be celebrating a nice Trump win. There you go. Welcome aboard. Thank you. So that's that segment right there. Let me get to a couple of super chats here before I start getting into the southern border crisis. I want to make Jesus also died a Jew. Well, that's, I guess, technically true. I guess that's true. That's probably true. He did die a Jew. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything over here. Good over here. Breck Nichols, Joe, 1st and 2nd Corinthians are 2 letters that Paul wrote to the early church in Corinth. Well, that's all I was looking for. Thank you, Breck. I appreciate you. See, that's all I needed. All right. That explains a lot. There you go. Jurgi says, if the courts tell Abbott, Texas, stop doing things that he's doing and he defies them, can he be held in contempt? Theoretically, yeah. You think the federal government's going to arrest him? Could happen. Seems doubtful. Normally, they would issue some sort of warning that they're going to hold him in contempt before him, and then you have to make a decision at that point. And even issuing the warning would, like normally when there's a contempt proceeding, they'll be like, all right, look, you didn't listen, and if you don't listen, there's going to be repercussions. That's usually the way courts tend to operate. It's a good question, Judy. Very good question. And over in locals, Fan says, remember Trump is resident of Florida, judgment-proof jurisdiction. Yep, that's correct. It is practically judgment-proof. Big Boop says 1 and 2 Corinthians were letters written by Paul to the church in Corinth, so they were Corinthians. Thank you, Big Boop. Should have got this earlier. Fan says, on Crumbley case, can make sure to review charges and the elements for it to keep in mind on how well defense and protection is doing. I will do that. I think that's a very important thing, and I appreciate your reminding me to do that. I think that's a very good call, fans. Very good call. Drop Barracuda says, not kidding. I think debates help to reach the base and get them motivated to vote for Trump, and Nikki Haley left specifically to get all behind Trump. Yeah, it could be. Could be. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. One of the things I'm a little upset with DeSantis about is he gave a very half-hearted endorsement of Trump. Very half-hearted. Read his endorsement compared to Vivek's endorsement. They're not at all the same. They're really not. In fact, that's actually a good thing. Here, this is Vivek. What Vivek said was, there's no path for me to be the next president, absent things that we don't want to see happen in this country. And then he's spoken to Trump and planned to campaign for him. And he pledged putting America First Canada in the White House and said that he planned to appear at a Trump campaign rally in New Hampshire in the coming days. Quote, now going forward, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency, and I think we're going to do the right thing for this country. That's a complete endorsement. That's like, I'm done. and he has my full support. That's what Vivek Ramaswamy did when he bowed out. What did DeSantis say when he bowed out? Well, despite the fact that I really don't like the way he handled COVID, I'm giving my endorsement to Donald Trump. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Now, was Trump meaner to DeSantis than Vivek? Definitely. Definitely. It was probably a much more bitter pill for DeSantis to swallow to give that endorsement to Trump than for Vivek. It was. There's no question. I mean, he was coming after him for his height, saying that he was a loser and never would have become governor if not for him, calling him desanctimonious. He was he was much more aggressive. To be fair, Trump was much, much more aggressive, probably realistically, because he almost certainly viewed DeSantis as more of a threat to his primary run than Vivek. And Trump tends to go after whoever he deems to be the most significant threat with the most aggression. So, yeah, I definitely think that it was I know he was much harder on DeSantis. So much so that there were times when I felt uncomfortable with how hard he was going after DeSantis. I was like, you don't need to go after him that hard. You really don't. And I felt uncomfortable with how hard he went after DeSantis. So I can understand the bitterness. And I guess that kind of explains a little bit the bitterness of these never-Trumpers who, who were big DeSantis supporters and feeling like, man, this guy was punching my candidate in the face for the last 6 months. And now I'm supposed to vote for him? It's a bitter pill to swallow. And maybe it's going to take him a little longer. But there's, declaring yourself a never-Trumper is childish. I'll never do it. It's just childish. I get it. I understand why people are feeling that way. It's childish. You don't know how you're going to feel in 6 months. And I don't think that these never-Trumpers, I think probably 75 to 80% of these never-Trumpers will end up, of these DeSantis never-Trumpers, are going to end up voting for him, if not more. I think there's way more than 70% of the DeSantis never-Trumpers that end up, in the end, voting for Trump. That's what I foresee happening there. Trump looks at politics like boxing. He does. He does. All right, let's get into the southern border. So there's a lot of confusion about what's happening with respect to proposed bills along the southern border. And I'm not going to kid you, I felt very confused about what bills are being proposed. And this has come up in Twitter spaces. And some people were talking about, they had this HR 2 bill. And why is it that Trump purportedly told the Republicans not to sign off on a bill because he wants Biden to look bad going into November and doesn't want this problem fixed, which that sounds very selfish, if true, which I don't think it is. But if true, the reason they're making this assertion is because it portrays Trump as being completely about himself, and to the point that he would go to the detriment of America and say, oh, I'm totally fine with there being another 2 million people streaming across the border between now and November, rather than having it fixed so that this looks like a crisis that will rally Americans towards supporting my candidacy. That is a ridiculously selfish thing. If true, it is a crazy selfish thing. It is. And it would be a fair critique of him to say, what the hell are you thinking? To the extent he has any influence with the GOP, which he likely does have influence, seeing as how the GOP was talking about naming him their proposed candidate and pushing Nikki towards stepping down. So, excuse me. So if he, in fact, he gave such a message, said such a thing, I would say that was terrible thing for him to do. It's wrong. It's a wrong thing for him to do. This is not ultimately about him winning. It's about let's make America better. And if you're basically saying that we should suffer along, it's no less wrong than trumping up COVID in 2020 to make Trump look bad, which I think was evil, corrupt, and just one of the most disgusting things imaginable, and heartless and cruel. And I think that this is a similar type of thing. If you would be saying, I want the situation to be dire so that people feel desperate to vote for me, which is the way the Biden campaign and his supporters operated and the way the media operated. And I don't think that it's justifiable for Trump to do such a thing. Not that I'm saying he did, but that's the allegations that are being levied against him. And the reason I've been confused in covering this is because H.R. 2, because there's actually two different bills that have been discussed. And they sort of got, and the problem is that H.R. 2 has actually gotten a number and a name and a number to it and terms behind it, as opposed to this new bill, which is percolating in the Senate. H.R. 2 was actually passed, but it was a House resolution that was passed by the GOP. And when I was sitting in this Twitter Spaces, so I had all these different people from the left saying, you guys on the right are claiming you care about the border. It's a lie. If you cared about it, you'd pass H.R. 2. So that made me start Googling H.R. 2, and I'm looking at them like, they did pass H.R. 2. In fact, they passed it, which H.R. 2 is designed to have sterner measures along the border. And it was passed with 0 Democrats voting for it. So I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I don't even, I'm confused. Like, what are you making this up? And I was like, and they were saying how Lindsey Graham said this is the sternest measures imaginable that we've ever had suggested, and we just need everyone to get behind and support it. The reason I was confused because it's not H.R. 2, it's some unnamed bill. That's what's being thrown around and does have bipartisan support in the Senate, which makes you think it might happen. And one of the people who's really strongly supporting it is Senator James Lankford out of Oklahoma. So the problem is nobody knows the terms of this bill right. And this is what we do know. Senator Lankford out of Oklahoma is supporting the bill. And this is what he says about it. Let's get this clip up here for you.
Okay, so you were here about a month ago. You said you were getting close then. You say you're even closer now. So let's talk about the rumors and give you a chance to respond to some of the critics who say they don't like what they know of this deal.
So let's, and just to be clear here, Senator Lankford is a Republican in the Senate.
There's something akin to a Title 42 power that would allow everyone at the
neocon. Very not MAGA. But, he's basically going to stand up for Second Amendment and abortion. Or, well, not abortion, for pro-life.
Border to be turned away once there was a rolling average over a week of 5,000 people showing up. Here's Senator Ted Cruz on that idea.
This bill normalizes 5,000 people a day coming in. 5,000 people a day is over 1.8 million a year.
That's what it normalizes.
That's called an invasion. By the way, under Joe Biden, we've had 9.6 million. So the great Republican compromise is we're for 2/3 of Joe Biden's open borders. We'll let in 6 million instead of 9 million. This makes utterly no sense.
Is that part of the deal? And how would you convince someone like Senator Cruz to vote for it?
Yeah, the challenge that Senator Cruz has and a bunch of other folks is they're still waiting to be able to read the bill on this. And this has been our great challenge of being able to fight.
Well, that you haven't drafted a bill. Why didn't you draft it then?
Through the final words to be able to get the bill text out so people can hear it. Right now, there's internet rumors is all that people are running on. It would be absolutely absurd for me to agree to 5,000 people a day. This.
But we'll see that they have.
Bill focuses on getting us to 0 illegal crossings a day.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You'll see that he's basically full of crap.
There's no amnesty. It increases the number of Border Patrol agents. It increases asylum officers. It increases detention beds so we can quickly detain and then deport individuals.
Not if they're not going to enforce that part of it, which has been the problem all along.
catch and release. It focuses on additional deportation flights out. It changes our asylum process so that people get a fast asylum screening at a higher standard and then get returned back to their home country. This is not about letting 5,000 people in a day. This is the most misunderstood section of this proposal. And let me tell you briefly what it is. In the last 4 months, we've had 7 days. In 4 months,
you're right. They're not going to vote on something they haven't read. And here's the thing. Why has it been leaked out into the public about how, oh, there's a bipartisan bill? And why is it that the Republicans are against it? Why has it been leaked out? The reason it's been leaked out is to start generating talking points for the left that, oh, you see, the Republicans are full of garbage because they keep saying they care about the border. And here's something that has bipartisan support that they're still against because they don't really care about the border. They just want to have some sort of issue to raise against Biden at the election.
We've had 7 days that we had less than 5,000 people. This is set up for if you have a rush of people coming at the border closes down, no one gets in. This is not someone standing at the border with a little clicker saying, I'm going to let one more in. We're at 4,999.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And then it has to stop. It is a shutdown of the border, and everyone actually gets turned around.
Nope.
Okay. That's the focus that we have right now is how do we actually intervene in this administration?
That's not what's being reported, nor is there any reason to believe that's what Biden would do.
And turn people around, not let people in.
So there may be some initial measurements. You get to that rolling 5,000 in a week, and then it's zero from that point on. But there is some initial measurement. Our Bill Malugin is reporting that the number would die.
Why would you need to have any measurement when we know that there's 10 to 15,000 coming in every day? Why would you need to have a measurement? What does that even mean?
Back then to about 3,750 a day at the border, and then once you hit that for about 2 weeks, the gates would open again. Can you confirm or deny that?
Yeah, it's not, again, it's not gates opening. That's a misunderstanding of the bill itself. It's how many can we process and actually deport. When you raise the standard for people coming across, when you increase the detention beds, when you increase deportation flights, you're not letting people in. And people are thinking about how the Biden administration is running it now. Right now, the Biden administration is allowed.
Oh, so basically you're playing into the GOP's role is not stop the Democrats, but slow down. That's your classic neocon move. It's never about stopping. It's just about slowing them down.
Allowing, for instance, 1,500 people a day just to come to the ports of entry, get a work permit, and get released in the country. People coming between ports of entry get what's called a notice to appear and get released in the country. All of that stops. We're focused on how many people can we process quickly and then deport out of the country, not release into the country. It would be absolutely absurd for anyone to be able to propose something to say we're just going to slow the number of releases. We're focused on how.
Why would you have the whole 5,000 number? Why is there that number? Is there confusion about how many people have been crossing every single day for the last 3 years? I mean, there is, because there's an unknown number. But here's the thing. It's not even shutting down the border. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. And here's part of this guy's lies. Okay? Let me share with you what actually would happen once they hit that 5,000, because they wouldn't shut the border at that point. No, this is what it is. This is according to USA Today. And you're going to see the real motivation for this entire bill. And it's classic uniparty. President Biden vows to shut down the border if Congress passes bipartisan deal. Okay? So this was reported 2 days ago, USA Today. President Joe Biden vowed to take immediate action to shut down the U.S.-Mexico border. Like this, if Congress approves a proposal under negotiation in the Senate. Actually, before I get to this, I just want to share with you that because of what Senator Langford has done, the Oklahoma Republican Party has ended all support for Senator James Langford over his Senate deal to expand immigration. And good for them. Good for them. Good for them for ceasing all support for this schmuck. Leading negotiations with Republicans and Democrats for a Senate deal that expand legal immigration to the United States. So Biden in a state, so let's coming back to what this deal is all about. In a statement released Friday night, he said what's being negotiated in the Senate would be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country. Really? He said the proposal would include new presidential authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. When it becomes overwhelmed. Like we're not at that point yet. We don't know that we're there yet. And if given that authority, I will use it the day I sign the bill into law. You have that authority today. Today. You don't need, there's no condition precedent to you having authority. You have the authority today. This is classic Democrat gaslighting. You have the authority today to shut down the border. In fact, so much so that you've gone to the court to say, this is our authority. Texas has no authority here. We have the authority. But if given that authority, what a complete and total lying jackass. Biden's statement sought to save a bipartisan border deal on the verge of collapse after Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell acknowledged privately to other Republican senators this week that opposition from former President Donald Trump puts the party in a dilemma. The demise of a bipartisan border deal would deny Biden the chance to claim a victory in addressing surging migration at the southern border, a topic the Republicans have hammered Biden over through his presidency, because it would not actually be a victory. It would be a classic Pyrrhic victory of like, yay, we won. Trump reiterated his opposition to a border deal in his Saturday morning post on his social media website, True Social. A bad border deal is far worse than no border deal, Trump wrote. That is not at all the same thing as don't do it because it hurts my political ambition. That's a bad border deal is far worse than no border deal. This is the way that they gaslight and say, oh, you see, Trump's all about himself. He just doesn't want them to wrap up, to actually fix the problems at the border. In an unusually blunt assessment last week, Biden told reporters the border is not secure. Oh, that's interesting. Amid record surges in migration, calling for significant policy changes with the asylum system and executive authorities to control the border. Biden is seeking a deal for $110 billion supplemental spending package in Congress that include border measures to bring Republicans on board to back more funding to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. Why? Why is this pork in there? Why is this pork shoved into a southern border crisis issue that all of a sudden we have to, if we want to defend the southern border, oh, you have to send money to Ukraine before I'm going to actually take any steps. I'm going to pretend that I don't have the authority, that this bill gives me the authority, and I'm actually going to promise to try and do anything about the migrant surge if you send money to Ukraine. That's the corruption that's happening with this uniparty. That's why Ray Lankford is behind this. So you can say, "Oh, you see, I accomplished something," when really this is purely about trying to look like you've done something when you've done nothing, and sending money to Ukraine. That's all this bill is about. Under the package discussed in the Senate, the Department of Homeland Security would be granted the power to shut the border down when migrants seeking to cross without prior authorization exceed a daily average of 4,000 people over a 1 week period. And if the migrant border crossings surpass an average of 5,000 a day, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to close the border to migrants crossing illegally and not at points of entry. Read this sentence again. If the migrant border crossings surpass an average of 5,000 a day, the Department of Homeland Security will be required to close the border to migrants crossing illegally and not at points of entry. There are 28 points of entry on the southern border. What this is saying to you is this. Hey, once we have that clicker that we get to 5,000, that's when we're going to restrict that they can only come through points of entry at that point. They can keep coming through points of entry at that point. So there's no limit at all. There's no limit at all. There can be 10,000 a day. They have to be coming through ports of entry rather than, crossing over the Rio Grande. What this is telling you is that they could shut down all the people crossing illegally, not at points of entry, but they're holding back from doing that unless we reach 5,000 a day. And then we're going to close off the parts that are not ports of entry. What the hell is happening here? What the hell is happening? It's unbelievable. Yes. So 5,000 plus any port of entry people. So we still can have the same 10, 12, 5,000 per day. So there's nothing changing, nothing at all changing, other than the fact that what this is served to do is this served to be an admission that we have a capacity to shut down the illegal crossings and non-port of entries. We're just not. That's what the Biden administration has admitted. We could shut them down, but we're not going to until we actually reach a certain number. And the Republicans who are signing off on this, they can go to hell. I'm going to tell you something. I say to you, God bless the Oklahoma Republican Party. God bless them. They should skewer this guy. And I obviously don't mean physically. I mean politically, that they should destroy him. That this guy should never be able to hold office again for leading the bipartisan charge of this, because these bipartisans basically try to make actual Americans who care about shutting down the border look as if like, oh, they're just doing it politically, when actually the people who only care about their politics are schmucks like this guy James Langford. So good for the Oklahoma Republican Party for calling out their own jackass. According to CNN, certain migrants would be allowed to remain in U.S. on the proposal of fleeing torture or persecution in their countries. Securing the border through these negotiations is a win for America, Biden said in his Friday statement. For everyone who's demanding tougher border control, this is the way to do it. If you're serious about the border crisis, pass a bipartisan bill and I will sign. Why the hell are you not shutting down those illegal crossings now? Now. You don't need any authority. You're claiming in court that you have all the authority in the world. And most people, most legal scholars agree with you. Certainly the Supreme Court agreed with you. Speaker Mike Johnson, who has spoken to Trump regularly about border talks, warned in a letter Friday that a Senate bipartisan border and immigration deal is likely DOA in the House. And on Saturday, Johnson released a statement arguing that Biden can stop migration without Congress's help. He can and must take executive action immediately to reverse the catastrophe he's created. Johnson reiterated the Democratic-controlled Senate should take up the House's strict hardline border and migrant bill policy passed last year, referred to as H.R. 2. That's what you should do. The measure already contains the core legislative reforms that are necessary to actually compel the Biden administration to resolve the border catastrophe. So, yeah. So now you understand. There's two bills. There's the House bill, which is H.R. 2, which was passed in May of last year. It doesn't have this 5,000 automatics allowed in. And then there's this Senate bipartisan crap, which doesn't do anything other than basically pretend that they're slowing things down at the border, while also, as a little pick-me-up, sending billions more to Ukraine. How is anyone surprised by this? Biden did the same thing to get rid of a Ukraine prosecutor. Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. Matthew Felty, if you have time tonight, please check out text of Presidential Proclamation 9844 and compare it to what is mentioned by Biden's statement on repeal. I saw you brought this up later. 2 of Trump's 10 vetoes were about Proclamation 9844. How long is it? I'm not familiar with Proclamation 9844. This is from 2019 when Trump issued a proclamation saying the current situation on the southern border presents a border security humanitarian crisis that threatens core national security interests and constitutes a national emergency. The southern border is a major entry point for criminals, gang members, and illicit narcotics. The problem of large-scale unlawful migration. Et cetera, et cetera. So he cites the whole problem. He says, now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, by authority vested in me by the Constitution of the United States, including sections 201 and 301 of the National Emergency Act, hereby declare that a national emergency exists at the southern border of the United States, that section 12302 of Title 10 United States Code is invoked and made available according to its terms to the Secretaries of Military Departments concerned to provide additional, and the Secretary of Defense and the Armed Forces, to provide additional authority to the Department of Defense to support the federal government's response to the emergency at the southern border. I hereby declare this emergency requires use of the armed forces and in accordance with Section 301 of the National Emergencies Act. Hereby direct that the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of each relevant military department, as appropriate and consistent with applicable laws, shall order as many units or members of the Ready Reserve to active duty as Secretary concerned. Yeah, because he cared about the border. Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Homeland Security says to take all appropriate actions consistent with applicable law to support the use of authorities herein invoked. And this proclamation is not intended, does not create any right or benefit of substantive procedural enforceable law equity by any party against the United States. So he basically got the military involved in trying to secure the border. Compared to what's mentioned by Biden's statement on repeal. So he repealed 9844. So what he said on when he repealed this, Biden, was, like every nation, the U.S. has a right and duty to secure its borders, protect its people against threats. But building a massive wall that spans the entire southern border is not a serious policy solution. It's a waste of money that diverts attention from genuine threats to our homeland security. My administration is committed. This was in February of 2021. Sorry, January 20th, 2021. Day he came in. There you go. In furtherance of that commitment, I have determined that the declaration of a national emergency at our southern border, Proclamation 9844, was unwarranted. Shall be the policy of my administration that no more American taxpayer dollars be diverted to construct a border wall, etc. Now, therefore, by authority vested in me by the Constitution, I hereby declare the national emergency declared by Proclamation 9844 and continue on February 13, 2020 and January 15, 2021 is terminated. Authorities invoked in that proclamation will no longer be used to construct a wall at the southern border. There you go. Pause all construction. Yeah. Thank you for calling that to my attention, Matthew. John Jelaine says, do thumb-operated clickers go over 10,000? Apparently. One-line bill. Enter through non-ports of entry. You'll be deported back immediately. Vote yes on HB 25. Is that really a House bill? Let's see, that is HB 25. But I don't know, maybe you're right. 2 of 10's Trump. Okay. The tracksuits have loops to hold garden trowels. They need to. They need loops. Anyway, so you're all caught up now on the southern border crisis. And if you're confused, just a review for those of you who are still confused. There's two different bills. There's H.R. 2, which is actually designed to close the border. That was passed by the House in May of this 2023. We're still waiting for it to make its way through the Senate, but that's not gonna make it in the Senate. Then you have a different bill, which is a bipartisan Senate bill that's never really actually been fully drafted, which apparently basically says that we're going to leave our border completely open, and once there are 5,000 per day that are crossing our border, then we're going to try to close the illegal ports of entry and still allow everyone to keep flowing through in the ports of entry. Now, I don't want to be accused of a lack of fully informing my audience. So I do want to clarify. I do want to clarify one thing here so that you are fully informed. The advantage to having them come only through ports of entry, presumably that the Republicans who are promoting this bill are trying to say is the actual benefit, is that when they come through a port of entry, they need to assert asylum. And that they're basically trying to say that asylum is rarely granted. We're going to expedite the whole asylum procedure. And if they're coming through a port of entry, we'll be able to find them and return and get rid of them. As opposed to, so we'll have the border closed, the illegal ports of entry, only have the 28 ports of entry. The people coming through the ports of entry will be able to track them, and then they'll basically be seeking asylum, and fewer than 1% will be granted that asylum, and the rest will be sent back home. If you believe that's really what's going to happen, then yeah, okay. That is what they'll tell you. That is what the people on the left will tell you. No, that's closed. That's closed. When the ports of entry, that's closed. If that was the goal, why is it we need to reach 5,000 per day? Why is it that we don't have that closed right now? Why do you need a new bill? All of this is in Biden's purview. Why would you need to have why would Congress have to sign anything? Why should this not simply just be the policy? Asinine. Yeah, but they just don't want to. They don't want to execute the laws of this country, and that's why we have this. Before we close up this topic, House Republicans released impeachment articles against Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, and this has been going on for several weeks now. That they've been holding hearings about whether or not they should have articles of impeachment, and now we have reached that day. We've reached that day as of yesterday. House Republicans on Sunday released 2 articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas as they vowed to swiftly push forward election year efforts to oust him over what they call his failure to manage the U.S.-Mexico border. The rare step against a cabinet member drew outrage from Democrats in the agency as a politically motivated stunt lacking a constitutional basis to remove Mayorkas from office. And this is a stunt. I'm not going to kid you. It is a stunt. It's basically designed to call attention to the failings of the southern border. That's what it is. Because let's face it, when you get him impeached, he's not going to be removed by the Senate. He's not going to be convicted at the Senate. That doesn't mean it's not a wise move on the part of the Republicans to call attention to this. It is a wise move. Republicans contend Mayorkas is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors that amount to a willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law on immigration and a breach of the public trust. Impeachment, they say, is Congress's only viable option. Alejandro and Mayorkas willfully, this is what the articles say, willfully and systemically refused to comply with the immigration laws, failed to control the border to the detriment of national security, compromised public safety, violated the rule of law and separation of powers in the Constitution to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Only once in American history has cabinet secretary been impeached. William Belknap, President U.S. Ulysses Grant War Secretary in 1876 over kickbacks and government contracts, going after an official for policy disputes, in this instance over the claim that Mayorkas is not upholding immigration laws, is unprecedented. Ever since taking control of the House in 2023, Republicans have pushed to impeach Mayorkas. Sunday's announcement comes as their other impeachment drive to impeach Democratic President Joe Biden in relation to his son's Hunter's business dealings has struggled to advance. All right. So this was according to VOA, which I don't know what that even stands for, but this was in my feed. This, I guess, but what is VOA? I don't know. But there you go. Joe has a deal with Mexico to block immigrants coming up from South America and along the border. He needs this problem to go away before November. Yeah. I'm sure he'll start trying to fix this in like 6 months. Non-citizen suffrage in U.S. There's a Wikipedia. They're not allowed to vote in federal elections, but allowed to vote in local elections. That's basically the status. But the reason that they want to have all these people in here, really, is twofold. One, we know that after they're here for a while, everyone starts screaming, they're living here. They've established lives here. They've been raising their families here. They're productive members of society. They need to. It's not fair that they should be denied citizenship. Let's have broad sweeping amnesty. And the other is that even before that amnesty comes, so that's not going to come tomorrow. It'll come in 2030. It'll come basically the next time you have a new Democratic president in office. That is when they will get amnesty. It's almost guaranteed. The next time there's a different Democratic president other than Biden, that's when the screams for amnesty will basic and granting them citizenship are going to kick in earnest. It's just the way the party operates. We saw this with Obama. Oh, Voice of America, our official state-owned media. Beautiful. Nice. All right. So that's one reason. The other is they benefit in the census. You might say to yourself, why do states like New York and California, Illinois, why do they create their sanctuary cities and push them to come up there? It's because these states are losing people. And when it comes to a census, you do not need to be a citizen to count toward a census. So you know that if there's a surge across the border, Texas alone cannot handle it. So if they come to your state, boom, voila. All of a sudden, you have an extra 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people. Now, do they tend to fill out their census forms? Probably at a lower rate than most citizens, because they're afraid of being exposed that they're here in America. Most of them are living in hiding. But some of them are going to fill it out. Definitely going to increase your numbers dramatically if you have enough of them. So, Dems want to ruin the country. Mission accomplished. Indeed. Border jumping isn't a felony. U.S. felons can't vote. Yeah. You have to be charged and convicted. Good luck with that. All right. So there's that story. Moving along. Wrapping up our southern border crisis. Cover that. Let's talk about the Crumbleys. So tomorrow I'm going to be streaming the trial. Jennifer Crumbley, mother, Ethan Crumbley. In case you're unaware, Ethan Crumbley shot up a school and I think he killed 4 people by my recollection. Thank you kindly. So what makes this case unprecedented? There have been situations in the past where a non-shooter has been tried and potentially convicted of crimes for the actions taken by a shooter. In every one of those cases, the person was directly involved in motivating and or providing an opportunity for the shooter to take the psychotic steps that the shooter took. That is not at all the charges that are going on here. That's not what we're dealing with here. What we're dealing with here is a situation where the parents are basically being charged for their purported neglect of a growing problem with their child, which ultimately enabled their child to both have access to a gun and to engage in the shooting. And that is why they're being charged. That is a whole different level, which basically puts parents across the country in potential jeopardy if they have a troubled child who decides to shoot up the school. Now, no one ever wants to see school shootings. At the same time, punishing a parent for the actions of a child when that child is not a small child. We've seen situations where a parent might be held liable, where a small child gets access to a firearm and it discharges and they end up seriously harming someone else. In those circumstances, and here's what you need to understand as far as the law looking at this sort of thing. The reason this case is so unprecedented is because normally, whenever we're going to charge someone with a crime, we look at the mens rea, the intent of the actors, and we look at the causal link. What is causal link? A causal link means that we can find a link between the actions and the actions by the perpetrator and the actions by the third party who was in charge of the perpetrator. So normally we sort of look at the cognitive abilities of the actor, the actual shooter, and we say if they have their own cognitive control of the situation, so that will serve as a break in the causal link. So the supervisor, the parent, or anyone serving in loco parentis in place of the parent is now going to be considered absolved of their actions because you have this break in the causal link, that you have this other thinking individual who is making their own rational decisions that are beyond the control of the parent. And because of that break in the causal link, we say the parent cannot be held liable for that. If you have a small child who can't really understand exactly what's happening, or if you have an adult who is, has cognitive issues, right? Like let's say they're a special needs type of child, right? So you could have someone who's a 20-year-old child who is perhaps, has Down syndrome or some other mental incapacity, and that they get access to a weapon and end up killing one or more persons, that we can understand that the parent or guardian who's supposed to be supervising them has been neglectful, and that this individual, the actions that they pulled are almost like a machine doing it. They're not making a cognitive decision of their own. So the causal link remains intact, that we say this is something that was predictable. You should have been able to see this happening. And that's why we'll say that the parent or guardian will be held liable. But normally, if that's not the situation, we have a teenager who's able to make decisions on their own, to act out on their own, to take steps that are beyond the will, desire, or control of the parent. That will sever the causal link. And we say, how the heck are you going to hold the parent liable for that? And that's precisely what the situation that we're dealing with over here with Ethan Crumbley, where he certainly he's a young adult who shot up a school, and there's no claims other than the fact that he was troubled, but anyone as a shooter is troubled, but there's no claims that he was incapacitated or lacked mental capacity to form his own decisions. Everyone recognizes he was forming his own decisions, and yet still the state of Michigan is claiming that the causal link should not be severed, and we should hold these parents liable for these otherwise unanticipated actions of the child. Now, in order to try and reestablish that causal link, the state is alleging that this was something that was predictable. This is something they should have foreseen happening. That they should have taken steps that would have enabled them to foresee it happening. That is a very, very scary burden to throw onto a parent. But let's analyze where this case is at so far, because the trial started on Thursday. There was opening statements on Thursday, testimony on Friday. And just to catch us up before we get into this trial on Friday. So I'm going to get two articles, one from AP. So the prosecutors used text to try and show mom of school shooter cared more about horses than her son. And this is a great point. that they tried Ethan as an adult. They didn't say he's a child and he's mentally incapacitated, but they said, hey, we want to punish him as if he's an adult, even though he's a teenager. We want to treat him like he's an adult. So you treat him like he's an adult, can make his own decisions, and then you're going to say the parents are still liable for the actions of an adult child. It seems grossly inconsistent and a very scary application of the law. Prosecutors on Friday sought to portray the mother of a Michigan school shooter as an aloof parent, more interested in horses than the mental health of her teenage son, who was apparently having hallucinations months before killing 4 students. Jennifer Crumbley, 45, is on trial for involuntary manslaughter, the first time parents have been charged in a U.S. mass school shooting. She and her husband are accused of contributing to the deaths at Oxford High School by neglecting their son's needs and making a gun accessible at home. Evidence showed Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, James, were riding horses and didn't respond when Ethan Crumbley sent her text messages on March 17, 2021, saying their house was haunted. See, this is what's really crazy about this. Yeah, you know when this shooting happened? 7 months later. October of 2021. So, they were riding horses. Why would this even be admissible? She told her husband earlier today she wanted to get drunk and ride a horse, according to messages displayed to the jury. Like, okay. So, Ethan Crumbley said he was scared. In fact, I want to make sure. I want to get the exact date. Let me pull up. Oxford school shooting. November 30th, 2021. They're showing text messages that she wanted to get drunk and ride horses in March of 2021. And somehow that is admissible when they're trying to figure out whether they were neglectful 7 months later. This is such an egregious abuse of law. Ethan Crumbley said he was scared because demons were throwing bowls. Can you text back? He asked his mother. 3 days later, when his parents again were riding horses, Ethan Crumbley messaged, clothes started flying off the shelf. This stuff only happens when I'm home alone. The computer crimes expert, Ed Wagrowski, testified that the hallucinations could have been warnings to the parents. Could have been warnings to the parents. This is how we get guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Could have been warnings. 7 months earlier. During cross-examination, defense attorney Shannon Smith said there could be reasons why Jennifer Crumbley didn't reply or even see the messages in a timely manner. Back in March, she mentioned weak wireless service in the area, belief that Ethan Crumbley was joking. Wagrowski acknowledged some of those points. I don't know what she's thinking. No, he said. In April 2021, 7 months before the school attack, Ethan told a friend that he was mentally and physically dying. He said he asked his father to take him to a doctor, but was told to suck it up. In April, prosecutors sought to contrast the alleged neglect of her son with the more detailed messages by Jennifer Crumbley about the treatment for her horse Billy needed for a bad leg. Make sure you get in between the heel bulbs, she directed. This is so gross. That was the day before the school shooting. At the same time, the school was leaving a voicemail teller. Ethan Crumbley had been searching for ammunition on his phone, but he wasn't in trouble. The message was played in court. So why isn't the school being held liable? Oh. 17-year-old was sentenced to life in prison in December after he pleaded guilty to murder, terrorism, and other crimes. Ethan Crumbley was 15 at the time of the shooting. James Crumbley faces trial on voluntary manslaughter charges in March. Smith told jurors Thursday that his mother was hypervigilant about her son and shouldn't be blamed for the deaths. Jennifer Crumbley is expected to testify in the days ahead. Smith wants to challenge some evidence by having Ethan Crumbley or his doctors speak to the jury, but his lawyers have said he would invoke his right to remain silent and also would not waive his right to privacy with psychiatrists. Let's follow up on this last paragraph here. Ethan Crumbley, the defense counsel wants to call Ethan Crumbley the shooter. And they want to have his doctors. Either and or his doctors, but his lawyers have said Ethan's lawyers said he would invoke his right to remain silent, would also not waive a right to privacy with psychiatrists, meaning that would forestall her ability to get much information out in front of the jury. Let's look at that. Judge will not allow Michigan school shooter to testify in mother's trial if he invokes the Fifth Amendment. So this is an interesting issue of law. The judge presiding over the trial, Michigan school shooter Ethan Crumbley's mother, said she would not allow the gunman to testify, and he invokes his Fifth Amendment right, as attorneys have previously indicated he would. The Fifth Amendment protects a person from being compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. The amendment is often invoked to avoid answering specific questions during testimony. It's not that I'm saying you can't call him as a witness, but two of his attorneys have said in no uncertain terms that he's taking the Fifth, Judge Cheryl Matthews told defense attorney Shannon Smith in court Friday. I'm going to prohibit you from putting any witness on the stand who takes the Fifth in front of the jury. That is strictly prohibited, the judge said. See, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. If it was his own trial, then I can understand saying you can't put him on the stand and have him invoke the Fifth, because that just makes him look guilty. But his actions are not being weighed and measured by this jury. So yeah, I can understand if if you're a defendant who's being charged, and the prosecution has the opportunity to put someone on the stand who's a defendant, knowing that he's just going to invoke his Fifth Amendment right throughout the entire testimony, that is a way of portraying him as if he has something to hide, which is likely to make the jury upset with him or assume that defendant's guilt and then convict that defendant. So that is a reason to say, hey, you can't take the stand. But Ethan Crumbley is not being tried here. It's his mother. So him taking the stand and invoking the Fifth Amendment, it's not a matter that this is going to hurt him. There's a reason the judge doesn't want to let this in here. And what one would think is the reason the judge doesn't want to let him in here is because it will make Jennifer look better if her son takes the stand and pleads the Fifth. I think that's what it is. I'm afraid she's going to look too good, but that if he says, hey, I'm not pleading the Fifth, I'm pleading the Fifth, I'm pleading the Fifth, that everyone's going to understand that, hey, this is not really her fault. Why is that? And it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't hurt Ethan. It's not like this jury's going to have an opportunity to convict him. And you might say to yourself, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. He's looking to appeal this whole thing, which is part of the reason that it's still relevant. He's looking to appeal this thing. So how is that going to hurt him in an appeal? Is an appellate judge going to say, well, he invoked the Fifth at the Jennifer Crumbley trial. Obviously, he's guilty. That's not the way this works. That's not the way any of this works. And I can understand that. You're correct. That is why he will be pleading the Fifth, because he's appealing the fact that he got a life sentence. Okay. Let's assume that for one reason or another, he's successful in his appeal, and for one reason or another, they need to have a new trial. So all you would need to do is basically stop the district attorney in that new trial from being able to raise up the fact that he was called to testify at Jennifer's trial and pled the Fifth, which that's a very easy instruction from the judge to give the district attorney in such a trial if such a series of events were to ever unfold. If in a situation, the whole point of the Fifth Amendment is we're trying to protect the accused from self-incrimination. There's no self-incrimination if Jennifer Crumbley wants to get him on the stand to say that he's invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. It's not hurting Ethan, because him pleading the Fifth is not going to hurt him in the appellate court. And even if he got a new trial, it could not hurt him in that new trial if the judge in that situation would direct the district attorney, you're not allowed to ask any questions or make any statement to the jury about what happened at the Jennifer Crumbley trial and how he pled the Fifth there. Very simple. It's really very simple instruction, which is basic constitutional law that district attorney should know even without being instructed in those terms by the judge. But you still have a binger out there every once in a while who doesn't really care much about the Fifth Amendment. So that's why you would have a judge give that instruction, just to make sure that they're all on the same page. If this series of events were to unfold, that he wins at the appellate court, and after winning, the appellate court says, now you need to have a new trial, which I'm not sure why that would happen, because normally they would just say, the sentence is reduced, now let's have a brand new trial. So you wouldn't even need a new trial. So I don't understand why this judge would say here that's strictly prohibited. It's a difficult thing to understand. Jennifer's attorneys have asked the judge to compel her teenage son and two jail psychiatrists to testify at trial. Her son was sentenced to life in prison without parole in December for killing 4 of his classmates and wounding 6 others and a teacher at Michigan's Oxford High School in 2021. He was 15. Now his parents are facing their own trials for manslaughter, with prosecutors alleging the teen's parents are also responsible for the deaths. Prosecutors have accused Jennifer and James Crumbley of ignoring their son's pleas for mental health care and buying him a gun despite his deteriorating mental state. I will point out to you that Michigan Supreme Court raised the question. He's like, this sounds very punitive of anyone who's a Second Amendment believer. It sounds like you're trying to punish them for believing the Second Amendment. When to a lot of people think that the ability for a child, a troubled child, to practice with a gun is actually therapeutic. It can be a very therapeutic thing. Ethan Crumbley's attorneys have indicated they will not waive privilege or confidentiality for his medical records, testimony of his doctors, or his own testimony. A Sunday letter from his attorneys indicated he's been advised to invoke his Fifth Amendment right if called to testify, as the appeal of his life sentence without the possibility of parole remains pending. Jennifer's attorney claimed in a filing earlier this week that the teenager's testimony is crucial to refute the text messages and journal entries he wrote about his parents' knowledge and of an involvement with his mental health. Judge Matthews has not yet ruled on Ethan Crumbley's doctors testifying. Shooter says mom laughed about mental health crisis. Ethan told a friend that his mother laughed when asked to see a doctor about his mental health, according to messages shown in court Friday during his mother's manslaughter trial. You see, this is just so wrong. So they're using his testimony to indict him, and they can't even question anyone about it. This is just so messed up. This is so messed up. Using his out-of-court statement, and she can't even cross-examine him about it. His out-of-court text message, not made under oath, and that the jury should assume is true. This is, I don't know how this is not hearsay. Messages were shown during testimony of Detective Edward Wagrowski, a cell phone forensic expert who analyzed phone and social media data from the Crumbleys. Ethan texted his friend on early April 2021, said he was hearing people talking to him and seeing someone in distance, according to the texts. I actually asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday, but he just gave me some pills and told me to suck it up. I mean, they'll say it's not Fifth Amendment, it's not that they could refute it, but they can't cross-examine him. That's what they need to do. They need to cross-examine him. In theory, yes, the defendants, James and Jennifer, could waive their Fifth Amendment rights in order to testify about the nature of this whole thing. But still, that's not the same thing as being able to cross-examine the person whose statement is being used to convict them. How are they facing their accused? These text messages are what's accusing them, and they're not facing. They don't have ability, capacity to cross-examine. To cross-examine Ethan, or even to show that he's pleading the Fifth on it. At least if they show he's pleading the Fifth on it, jury could infer from that maybe he was full of crap when he wrote those text messages. We don't know. The dude was psycho. So maybe if you believe he's psycho, everyone believes he's a crazy person, but you believe in the truth of his statement when he says that his parents laughed or his father told him to suck it up. Not that I think that, by the way, I want to be clear on this. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong in that situation. And he said it, suck it up 7 months before the guy shot anyone. So you know what? Maybe in April, he really did need to suck it up. Maybe that was great advice in April. 7 months in the life of a 15-year-old is ages. Ethan Crumbley wrote in messages like, it's at the point that I'm asking to get the doctor. My mom laughed when I told her. I know that she's going to be going on the stand. I understand that, but even her going on the stand, that's not her facing her accuser. Her accuser are these text messages, and she has no ability to refute them. Even if she refutes them, that's self-satisfying. That's self-serving testimony. That's not nearly as good as basically indicting the veracity of what Ethan wrote in these text messages. That's why I think admitting these text messages seems really grossly unfair. Her accuser is these text messages. And she can't cross-examine the author. Crumbley texted his friend who was experiencing insomnia and paranoia, and he was thinking about calling 911 so he'd go to the hospital, according to the evidence presented in court. Quote, I'm going to ask my parents to go to the doctor tomorrow, Tuesday again, but this time I'm going to tell them about the voices. He texts friend, like I'm mentally and physically dying. Later in the month, Jenna, this is all like 7 months beforehand. This is so ridiculous that any of this was admissible. It's hearsay that she can't cross-examine. It's 7 months beforehand. It's so messed up. Everything about this trial is so freaking messed up. Later in the month, Crumbley messaged the mother of his son's friend saying Ethan Crumbley has been acting kind of depressed. Ooh. Big freaking deal. I have plants that look depressed. Quote, I'm not used to Ethan being moody. He's usually pretty happy. And we talked about anything, she said, adding that she thought his son had been stressed about his grades. Yeah. Anytime a kid's stressed about their grades, you need to send to psychiatrists. Because they'll fix them right up. And if you don't, you're going to go to jail if the kid ends up cracking and doing something psychotic. Prosecutors also displayed concerning messages between the Crumbleys from the month prior to the shooting. On March 8, 2021, Jennifer messaged her husband expressing concern about the son, saying he was upset and she didn't want him to do anything stupid. Again, 7 months before anything happened. Like all these different things about flushing a toilet and slamming a door even though nobody's home. Maybe it's just my paranoia. This is like literally he did the shooting in November. March 17, Jennifer Crumbley messaged up saying she was just going to get drunk and ride my horse. Grouse testified the vast majority of parents' Facebook messages he read were about horses. He estimated upwards of 75% of their conversations began in early 2021 were about their horses. Who cares? Only a couple conversations about their son. This is so terrifying. I'm going to tell you something. If you check my text messages with Lady Lawgic, there's like, in the last 5 years, there's probably fewer than like 20 about our kids, and none of them are about their welfare. It'll be like, oh, Ellie needs to be picked up from school. No problem. I got it. Like, that's it. Like zero text messages about the welfare of my kids. I guess God help me if they shoot up. If one of them goes psycho. Insanity. Honestly, I think you send your kids to psychiatrists, half time you make them worse. On the morning of the shooting, Oxford high school officials contacted Jennifer Crumbley regarding disturbing drawings his son drew on a math worksheet, which obviously that's a sign he's about to shoot up the school. According to messages shown in court, Jennifer Crumbley sent the image to her husband and said, "Call now, emergency." My God, WTF, James Crumbley responded, then added he was still waiting on their horse's vet. Ooh. Prosecutors played surveillance video in court that showed the gunman's appearance in the school counselor's office for about 12 minutes that day. After they left the school, Growski testified both parents returned to work. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to sit in class with him? Why did the school let him back in? After school sent out active shooter alert later that day, Jennifer texted her son telling him she loved him, asking if he was okay, and then writing, "Ethan, don't do it," according to messages shown in court. All right. So that's the trial. I totally agree with you on this. That saying that he's going to plead the fifth beforehand is ridiculous. Defense said mom will go on stand in opening. Yeah, I heard that. Friend should have testified to allow text. No. Even the friend testified. It was hearsay that Ethan is saying to the friend. How does the friend know whether or not it's true? Ethan writes a text message saying, "I told my dad that I'm dying or I'm depressed or whatever." He said, "Suck it up." So for some reason, that's considered something terrible, which I'm still not sure why that is, but that's definitely that's the way it's being portrayed, that's terrible parenting. And even though, and it's 7 months before the shooting, but if that's what's being used to show neglect of parents or whatever it is, how do we know this even happened? And just because he wrote it to this kid doesn't mean this. He also was maybe he's dreaming that maybe he's dreaming his father saying "suck it up" when he's dreaming of clothes flying off of shelves. So we believe that he's got these crazy visions, and now we're also trusting him as to what happened in his conversations with his dad. I mean, think of how ridiculous this is. The DA would be satisfied if they gave him meds. Yeah, because it's always about medication. Medicate all our kids, then you're a good parent. If you medicate all your kids into a coma, you're a great parent, according to the state. Grifty, what exactly are they supposed to do? Even as parents, it's almost impossible to have someone institutionalized nowadays, and most shooters are on meds. This is part of why it's so scary. I agree with you. I agree with you totally. So I'm going to be watching this trial tomorrow. I'm going to be live streaming this trial tomorrow morning. I assume it starts at 10 o'clock. If any of you can correct me on that, I would appreciate that. My assumption is that it starts at 10 o'clock. I'm planning on setting my live stream up for 10 o'clock in the morning. And I will be live streaming this trial, which I believe is being aired on YouTube. So I will be live streaming and providing my legal commentary and analysis of the work being done by the district attorney as well as defense counsel and of the judge. And I know that I'm starting on day 3, but I am going to be live streaming this trial starting tomorrow and going forward. 9:30 Eastern, 9:30 Eastern, 8 a.m. local, 7. Bah! Bah! He's pleading the 5th because he's claiming that he should not have gotten life because I guess he's too young. And he thought the punishment was too rough. Michigan's in Eastern Standard Time? You sons of guns. You tell me it's starting in 6.5 hours? Well, at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Well, tomorrow morning I'm going to be streaming this. Lord, let me see if I can find something here. (8:30 a.m. Eastern). Let me see something. Let me see. I'm going to try and figure out what this is. I think it's 8:30 a.m. Pretty sure it's 8:30 a.m. Yeah, I'm seeing this as 8:30 a.m. Friday they said 9:30 a.m., but may have changed to 9 a.m. after they stayed late to sort out exhibits. I'm going to try and figure out exactly. I'll try to go to the end of the stream and see if I can figure out what time tomorrow they're starting. All right. Last story. Before I wrap up over here. Last story we're going to watch a video on, and I'm going to have a discussion with you about this. But I urge you to tune in tomorrow morning, and you can find out what time on Locals. That's at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. You don't need to be a paying member to get all notifications about when and where I am. Yes, I have live streams. Many of my live streams on Locals will be subscriber only. If you don't have the $5 a month in your budget, I will happily provide you with free access. All you gotta do is just ask me for it. No IRS forms, no interrogation, simple request saying, hey, I really want to access, I can't afford it. Boom, I'll take care of you. I'll hook you up with a free monthly. So that's goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. All right. Last story. And I urge you, if you try reaching out to me and I haven't responded, I urge you to try again. The best way is probably either on Locals or on Twitter. At The Following Pro is my Twitter handle. At The Following Pro, as in this is, I usually have the following program during weeknights. I show the following program. So take out the gram, give the gram away, and it's The Following Pro. All right. Last story. The sentencing of a woman who stabbed her boyfriend 108 times. 108 times in a marijuana-induced psychotic rage.
Tonight, outrage growing after the sentencing of Bryn Spacer, after she was convicted of stabbing a man she was dating, Chad O'Melia, more than 100 times. This is video of her being taken out on a stretcher the night of the killing. This week, a judge sparing her from prison, sentencing her to 2 years of probation with 100 hours of THC education.
2 years probation.
The victim's father recalling the moment the sentence was read.
I told him straight away, right after he said it, I said, you just gave everybody in California that smokes marijuana a license to kill people.
The pair had been dating a few weeks when Spacer visited O'Melia's California home in May 2018. Experts during the trial said they were smoking high-potency marijuana when the drug caused Spacer to slip into a psychotic state, stabbing O'Melia with 3 different knives, a total of 108 times.
2 sheriff's deputies came to my home and they said, well, he's deceased. And then when I heard that, I literally collapsed. I dropped to my knees. And then the deputies said, well, we need to let his mother know. I said, you need to sit down for a minute. And now I can see that she's worried. And sorry. I looked her in the eye and I said, Michelle, Chad is dead. And, you know, just like you turn on and off a light switch, I could see in her eye that she broke.
Body camera from responding officers shows Spacer then stabbed herself with a 10-inch serrated knife, clipping her carotid artery. Sheriff's deputies tased her 4 times before rushing her to the hospital.
He found, this expert, prosecution expert, that Ms. Spacer was not able to be consciously or cognitively aware of what she was doing at the time of the stabbings. She was not an experienced user or knowledgeable about the potency of the marijuana that anybody can buy from a marijuana dispensary, or in this case, a marijuana delivery service. She had no clue at all.
This fall, prosecutors downgrading the original murder charges in the case to involuntary manslaughter due to what they said was Spacer's psychotic state at the time of the killing. She faced up to 5 years in prison until a Ventura County Superior Judge this week decided Spacer would not serve any time.
The law presumes that she will go to prison. The judge had to make the extraordinary finding that it was in the interest of justice, which is a specific finding, to not send her to prison. It was a strong verdict. And that this judge then gave her the benefit of the doubt beyond reason is very concerning and troubling to me as a career prosecutor.
Since the day I found out, I have not slept.
It's such a terrible story. It's such a terrible story.
Beautiful night. Michelle, she got depressed in a year and a half after we lost Chad, she died.
Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. What utter tragedy this man has suffered.
I felt the system had failed Chad. Absolutely.
Such a sad and bizarre story. David Noriega joins us now from Los Angeles. David, does this ruling mean that others could use a marijuana defense moving forward in these types of cases?
Tom, it's one question whether criminal defense attorneys will try to use this case to get their clients off the hook, but it's a different question whether such strategies will work. One legal expert we spoke to said that it's unlikely that this case will actually set a legal precedent because it's, in a couple of different ways, pretty anomalous. For one thing, you had experts for both the defense.
Well, it's going to be appealed. You'd imagine that the sentencing would be appealed by the DA, and then so it's not this level that it would have, assuming that they go through with that appeal, which I don't know that they will, but assuming the district attorney's office goes forward with an appeal of the sentencing, that it would be when a higher level court would approve the judge's sentencing. At that point, it would be something which could theoretically be used as precedent for other defendants. At this point, it's really not precedential. If anything, it might be influential. But the way things work in any court system in our country is that it's not really considered precedent when a district court makes a particular finding. It's only once an appellate that finding is appealed and upheld, either with the first level appeal or by the highest court, that it becomes something, and that it becomes something that's now usable by other defendants as precedent that should dictate how other judges should or must act in given circumstances. So, and that's at this point, the status would be something that is considered influential for other judges, but not something that binds other judges. Sort of starts paving the path, whether or not it's appealed.
And the prosecution saying that Spacer was in a state of acute psychosis. That's why the state downgraded those murder charges to involuntary manslaughter charges in the first place. Now, none of this changes the fact that the sentence was very surprising and to the family of the victim, very upsetting. Back to you, Tom.
All right, we appreciate all that. Thank you for your report.
And this is a fair point you're making. Think about how this can help black out drunk cases. Theoretically, it could apply to that. And the Reefer Madness, yeah, you were right. I missed this. You're talking about Ethan's text that he got it and understood it to mean, even if he got it, doesn't change the fact that it could have been full of crap. And that's why I was saying it shouldn't have been admitted. Going back to Ethan Crumbley, this was. Yeah. So I do want to discuss what was the issue that was raised. I assume this was an attorney. This old guy who spoke here. Where was it? Here he is. I do want to discuss this part here because I think this is an interesting thought process. The initial reaction that all of us have when we hear this case is this sentence is asinine and terribly wrong and something that should be universally condemned. I want to discuss this part.
He found, this expert, prosecution expert, that Ms. Spacer was not able to be consciously or cognitively aware of what she was doing at the time of the stabbings.
So this idea that you cannot be aware.
She was not an experienced user or knowledgeable about the potency of the marijuana that anybody can buy from a marijuana dispensary, or in this case, a marijuana delivery service.
So now that's an interesting thing, basically saying she couldn't have mens rea because she had no idea what's happening there. Someone made a comment a few moments ago about could this be used by blackout drunk? Over there, I think that you sort of need to take enough alcohol And in theory, even if this were to become the law in California or in other jurisdictions, the common knowledge as to the impact of excessive drinking is something that is more it'll be more difficult for a defendant to say, I didn't know it would have this impact on me. I agree that definitely it starts us down that road. It starts us down that road. But in general, we tend to assume that you need to have mens rea. And if she's so crazy that she's stabbing not just her boyfriend, but a dog and herself in the carotid artery, which usually is lethal, and someone gets or it's as close to a lethal blow as you can get without dying, that she clearly was not. I can understand when you hear that she stabbed herself in the carotid artery. That implies that she really was, insane at the moment that this was happening. You can understand a finding to a degree that she really doesn't have mens rea. That being said, the fact that she took this, and this is she willfully took the drug. Normally we say that if you willfully intoxicate yourself or take something that helps you lose your mental state, that you're still going to be held liable. But it's not. There are different contexts in which someone can take a drug. There's a classic situation here, okay? Let's say someone decides they're going to kill someone, and then they take out, before they go out and do the deed, they take a shot of alcohol, or maybe 2 or 3. So there, the alcoholic intoxication is not going to serve as any defense. If someone decides that they want to, and they want to be drunk in order to get to that stage, again, the alcohol that they're taking or whatever drug they're taking would not be viewed as a defense. So you would need to establish that there was absolutely no malice here, and that she really lost control of her mind. But even so, you would think that with the repercussions that came out of this, the fact that she got 0 jail time, it seems as if California law already accounts for this when they say, listen to what this report said. The maximum jail time she was facing was 5 years. Why was it only 5 years instead of 20 years? Because we're saying, hey, you know what? She didn't really know what she was doing. That's why it's down to 5 years. You don't say that a second time, say, now let's give her 0 time. Right? I mean, that's the whole point to having a reduced sentence max, is that you say, look, if someone really has lost their cognitive abilities because they're that far gone, you can only give them a maximum of 5 years. Okay. So then give them the 5 years. But to say that you get 0 is just, that's an astonishing finding to me. It's astonishing. So weed legal in California is so dangerous you kill. Can you go after state by allowing this high potency weed on the market? They approved it. Almost certainly not. Almost certainly not. And it does make you say, like, look, if this is really a potential side effect of weed, and now there's a nationwide push to legalize weed, like, what the heck is happening here? What is happening? Let me see what you guys are saying over here in Rumble. I do think that if she was hideous, she would have gone jail time. I think this is part of pretty privilege. I think this is part of pretty privilege. I don't know that. I'm simply saying, come on. This is the one case. This is the one case where she happens to be fairly attractive. All right. Anyway, I appreciate your thoughts and comments down below, whether or not you think that this sets a bad precedent. Do you think that this is leading us down a bad road? They say I'm supposed to ask for comments, but I do read them. So if you can weigh in on that. Also, like, share, subscribe. Tomorrow morning, I am going to be streaming the Jennifer Crumbley trial. Apparently, that starts, I'm going to assume at 9 a.m. I'm going to assume it's starting at 9 a.m. So I urge you to check that out right here on Good Lawgic, where yours truly will be streaming the trial. I look forward to seeing you at that time. For now, it's time for me to call this a wrap. I thank you all for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the show, maybe learned something, got some facts, got some perspective. And if you have any criticisms or critiques, constructive or otherwise, have at it. That's why we do this. I will see you all tomorrow, 9 a.m. So I'm assuming 9 a.m. Time dependent. For the Jennifer Crumbley trial. Till then, I thank you all for joining me. Make sure that you stay happy, eat the bugs. And as always, my friends, I say to you, Godspeed. Oh, wait. Oh, I missed two things. Sorry. Two. Bleh. Fans said, just got a call back to Joe's favorite bill, HB 25 fair tax. He did not get it. Oh, is that what that was? Joe got the deal with Mexico, just not on paper, always in cash. He cannot anger his base like he has with Israel. Okay. Now I got it. I'm out. Take care of yourselves. Godspeed.